Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
I'm John.
And I'm Brian.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of We'll Play Again, where we look at games at how we get to the table recently and how quick we can get them to the table and how quick you might get them to the table. Today we have The Crew Mission Deep Sea from Cosmos Games. Now you may be familiar with its older brother, The Crew Quest for Planet 9. Now this is the more recent version and it is slightly different. I think it's safe to say that it's different enough and we'll get into that shortly. But much like The Crew, it's a short game. It's a 10-minute learn, a 5-minute teach, and a couple of minutes to set it up and sort of go in between rounds. Our average play time is about 5 minutes across 21 games, so it's very quick. You're getting that hand through. So it is a trick-taking game. So you'll have all cards dealt out to all players, and you'll be playing suits of cards to try and win tricks based on the missions that you've got. So, like I say, it's absolutely quick. It's something you're going to be firing off. We got through a lot of games of this at Aircon. This was one of my Aircon purchases, so I think it's safe to say you just sit around a dinner table, sit down the pub, sit anywhere, and you're just going to fire this off, and it's quite quick and easy to explain and quite quick and easy to get into it. I think coming on to that, it is different enough from the Crew Mission to Planet 9, and I think it's different enough to all other trick-taking games, whereby, and I think obviously the difference for this lies here in the missions and also in the logbook where you're going to be doing some of the stories that you've got there. So, John?
It's a very Moorish game. You want to carry on playing it once you've played one hand and get through a hand, get through a mission. I think that replayability and that draw to play it again and just keep going is definitely there. And again, it's just another lovely small box card game. Again, box could be smaller. There's not a lot to it.
Yeah. I think it can be quite playgroup dependent. You played it quite a lot at Aircon. I played it for the first time just now. Couple of hands, but really you need to be in sync with your play group. It's a hidden, it's not hidden, but you don't speak when you're playing it, so you've got to just look around. You can't discuss what you're going to do. It's a collaborative game, so if you lose one of the missions, you all lose, and the game stops straight away. So you need to be kind of on a same wavelength as the people you're playing with. So if you've got different levels, if someone's been playing a lot and someone's not been playing it very much, you might miss some of those social cues.
I think as well that the later missions, you're going to have a couple of hands to get through them. It's not something you could just come in cold and just. I mean, if you're playing with us, and also, but if you're playing with 4 people, it's almost like you've got to play with the same people each time to do the missions to get through them. You could be playing with different groups of people and do certain missions and not other ones. So
you're not going to have a campaign group. It's not going to be like the Gloomhaven. You're not going to sit down with a group of people to play it all the way through.
No. I mean, what I find interesting is there's a storyline that runs through this. Each mission's got its own little sort of write-up about what you're doing, and they kind of flow together. So that's quite interesting for a lot of people, I think. I think a lot of people just won't bother reading them because fundamentally you just draw from the deck and then play out your hand. And that's just a bit of flavour text. But it does add to a little something. Someone spent a lot of time putting that together, and it does. I think some people quite enjoy that.
Yeah, I think they put a lot of effort into the thematic story compared to some of how things work, and I think early on, and spoilers, but early on there's a leak, so only a certain amount of people can talk to each other. So it's they're trying to add a little bit of story and a little bit of theme.
But the art's quite abstract. There's, again, when you're playing the game, you're basically looking at the colours, not the pictures, but there's some interesting artwork in there. Some of it's repeated across the suits, but it's abstract and interesting enough, I think, just to keep some people entertained when they're waiting for their go.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be flowers, it could be colours. You could just have the colours on the cards. Same with a lot of these small box ones. The artwork's just incidental, really. I think without the logbook, you wouldn't even really recognise that it's an underwater type game.
No. Yeah.
Is it different enough from the other version of the Crew? Die Crew! Give it its German name. Is it different enough? Yes, the missions make it different enough, and we've barely scratched that pile. There's enough in there to keep it going. The communication's the same, but I think it's different enough to warrant buying alongside it.
I think the bit for me that's really, really good, and obviously this is one of the main differences between this and the Mission to Planet 9 is that in Mission to Planet 9 you had the single mission cards that you'd be playing out, whereas in this one you've got a difficulty, and you will draw cards based on your player count and based on the difficulty of those cards, which adds a real good build onto what sort of each card itself is difficult. I mean, this is 4 difficulty on all, but you've got a difficulty here that is more difficult than more players. I will win all the cards in at least one of the 4 colours. So more players you've got, the more diluted the cards are around the table. It's going to be incredibly difficult. But in a 3-player game, that's quite easy.
Yes.
You've only got to win 3 tricks potentially if you've got the 3 high cards. So I think that's those themselves. It adds a little bit more, because I think in Search for Planet 9 you could have something that was ridiculous with the player count that you had. We've played it with 3 players all the time. We've played it, so we've only really seen that, but we quite easily and quickly see how difficult it is. For instance, we've got one out here. I will win as many pink cards as blue cards in one trick. Now, obviously, you're hoping in there that people are going to end up dumping the hand and having to play other cards. Now, again, that is easier for a 3-player count. On a 4-player count, that's pretty ridiculous. But you've got that difficulty, which I think adds quite enough.
Yeah, it seems more refined than the original one.
Absolutely. I'd be interested to see where we go next, and if there is a further refinement and a further adaptation of this without just adding more story. And I think the original crew had over 50 missions. I think this one's got 32.
32, yeah.
Which is great. I'm just confirming that. Yeah, it has got 32 on there. So it's great. But obviously, they may have run out of a little bit of steam there.
Yeah.
I think on that point, it is repetitive. So you could get burnout. I mean, I want to play all the story missions. So I want to know a bit about the story. But all I'm doing is sitting playing a trick-taking game for a 32 rounds.
I think where they possibly go with it next is the stories, and they link this to like mythologies of Cthulhu or other things like that, and that's how they get through them. And they change the card. You lose a bit of sanity, so you can't play certain cards and things like. That's potentially where it could go. But yeah, the burnout that Sunday afternoon at Aircon, I think we were
throwing cards
at each other at the end of it. But it's a good game. It is a good game and a nice filler.
It's a lovely filler game, yeah. I mean, you can certainly play half an hour beforehand of this.
I do think that the only thing that would concern me about the nature of a filler is, just one more hand, and before you lose, you run out of time to play your main game.
That is a danger. I think that's true. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Which is good, but obviously, if you are using it specifically as a filler, I think maybe more of the end of night game than something in between, probably.
Yeah.
Cool. So, John.
I'll play again soon. It's if it got brought to the games night and it was there and we needed to fill a half an hour, no problem at all.
I've just started playing it. I'm not, I like it. I think it's really good. I would play again soon. I want to play again.
Yeah. So for me, we'll play again soon. So we all agree. I think yes, it's not going to be that main game that you bring to game night. It's going to be something you bring as a filler. Or have you tried this? And I think we've mentioned on similar games, it's quite welcoming to the players outside of the hobby, which is good. It's got enough to keep players inside the hobby happy. And I think, playing it in between games, it's palate cleanse, I think is probably the word I'd use.
Your gran could play this.
I'd have this in my collection, I think.
Yeah. Fantastic. So thanks for joining us for this episode of We'll Play Again. If you haven't done so already, please check out our other videos on the channel, give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Captain.